And we're back, episode 21. Jill, 20 was a little rough for you.
I was a little gagging, but
yeah.
I'm holding it together.
You're holding it together, but let me tell you something. 21 could get rough for you as well. If you take title improperly to your new home, it could get rough for you as well. Let's say this. Let's say you're 25, 28, 30. You know, you're not married.
The average age first home buyers are, it's about 32 to 33 years
early
old
30s.
now.
So let's say you're a millennial, not married, getting ready to buy a house. You're tired of renting. You pull your resources together. You buy a house. How should you take title to that house? That's story one.
And just to point out for millennials, we did an episode on episode number 1.
Yeah, episode 1.
Rent versus buy. That's a great one. A lot of information.
You're the future. We go broke. If you don't buy homes, we go broke. So episode 1 was for you.
All right, episode number 2. Getting a little scarier.
You mean story 2.
Story number 2, excuse me. Getting a little scary out there. Middle-aged couple, grown children. Bim, bam, boom. Hubby bites the dust. He's gone. He's out. Wife's left.
What are you trying to say?
Well, not you. It's not about us, but, you know, I'm allowed to. This is my my little scenario. So in this one, I live and survive.
Okay.
The grown children are there. The entire estate passes from the dad to the mom. They think, okay, when mom's gone, it's coming down our way. A couple years go by. Mom's happy again. Remarries. Buys a new house with hubby number 2. What happens to that home in the event of the mother's death? Good scenario to think about. Yeah. It's commonplace these days.
And joining us today is lreilly, Title Officer and Manager at Devon Abstract, to help us explain what could happen in these situations. Lori, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Hi, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, we just gave 2 examples here. Let's dive into the first one, the young couple. What should they be looking for in taking title to their home?
Well, first of all, if the young couple they are not married, then they have 2 choices. They can either take title as joint tenants with the right of survivorship or tenants in common. And joint tenants with the right of survivorship is just like it sounds. It's as close to the tenants by the entirety, which is for married individuals. What happens is they each own a 50% share of the property.
Okay.
And when, God forbid, one of them passes away, the ownership of the property automatically passes to that other partner. The other way to hold title is tenants in common. That's a little more complicated. If one of them passes away, God forbid, their 50% interest then goes into their estate, and it's now owned by their beneficiaries, which could be their parents, children, siblings. So now you've got a 50% ownership with an individual and an estate. So those are the 2 types of ownership. How should they take title? That really depends on the situation. Most young couples who are buying a property together have the intention of maybe getting married at some point in the future, and most of the time they're going to take the joint tenants with the right of survivorship. It's just a little less complicated for the ownership of the property.
So they can't do it as tenants in the entirety until they're married. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. Only 2 legally married individuals can take title as tenants by the entirety. That is correct.
And we do always recommend that homeowners that are doing estate planning look into this, because there are other implications.
Yeah, and do it long before settlement. Don't get the settlement, and then we've seen this happen too many times where people get the settlement and the
they haven't talked about
it. Right, and they say, well, how would you like to take title? And they go, huh? So
and it can be an awkward conversation to have at the settlement table with everyone else in the room. So yeah, so just something you definitely want to look into ahead of time.
Yeah.
Get some legal advice if you think you need, if your situation is a little more complicated. Definitely want to look into it, or call me, because I can also help you ahead of time.
That would be the best thing to do, is call you ahead of time. And I would think that, you know, in terms of getting complicated, when you're dealing with investors, things can also get a little bit tricky there, right? You get a couple of guys that buy an investment property.
That's correct. And more common for an investor is for them to take title as tenants in common, because most of the time you're going to find 2 married individuals, both partners are married, and they're going to want their share of the property to go to their family.
Yeah.
Tenants in common would most likely work more for them. But each situation is different, so it's something we need to talk about and work through with, and we can certainly do that ahead of time.
And we advise all of our young buyers that aren't married, if they do marry after they purchase the property, go to an attorney afterwards. Look into changing the titling after you've been married to tenants by the entirety. It's a few $100s.
That is so important. That is absolutely true. I'm glad that you brought that up. It is very important to do that. A lot of people don't understand that. I do try to bring that up with the couple that settlement, but they forget there's so much going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, agents, it's a great way to reach out to past clients moving down the road. If you know they're getting married, give them a buzz after all the festivities are over with.
Yep, absolutely.
a great piece of advice for the first-time homebuyer especially. Now moving on to our next scenario, we have the middle-aged couple, wife inherits when the first husband passes, children automatically think, oh, when mom passes it all comes back to us. If that spouse is remarried, what happens when the mom passes away? Does it go to the other spouse? Does it go down to the children? Does it go to his heirs?
Okay, so that is a very good question, and it's really important for people to know this ahead of time as well, because if they take title and they don't say anything, and the deed reads, John Smith and Jane Smith, husband and wife, it's going to be assumed tenants by the entirety, which means that one of the spouses, if mom dies, the property is now owned by the new husband. The kids have anything to do with it at that point. It's the ownership that gets passed to the new husband. So unless they actually tell the person that's the one that doesn't want to take title as tenants in common, which would be how they would want to in this case, it's going to be automatically assumed tenants by the entirety. So again, they have to look at their own situation and discuss this ahead of time, but unless they specifically say it, it's going to be assumed tenants by the entirety, and the kids are out of the picture.
Wow, and that could be a very uncomfortable discussion.
Right, that could be a tough conversation. I mean, a lot of these things are going to be tough conversations.
It's like a prenup is a very difficult conversation. You think you have it all set and ready to go, but important points to look into as we're moving along here.
Yeah, you just have to do it. They're tough conversations. They have to be had. Lori, anything else our viewers should know? Any gotchas that they might want to be looking out for?
The only thing that might be important to mention too, and this is just because a lot of people don't understand it, and we've had some conversations when it's too late after the fact. Even if you're taking title as joint tenants with the right of survivorship, we just want it to be clear to everyone that that is just the ownership of the property. There would still be inheritance taxes and other issues. I don't want to get into too much of it, obviously, but just be aware of the entire situation there. It doesn't mean anything other than their interest in the property automatically transfers to the surviving partner. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there. We already talked about how important it is after they get married, because they have some. It really does help them. It gives them some protection against certain liens that could come on the property. So other than that, I think we've covered everything as far as how to take title. And again, they can always call Devon Abstract.
Absolutely. Lori, what about, just curiously, what about a situation where a child or a spouse, surviving spouse, feels that their will they've got this covered in their will? Will the way they've taken title, will that trump the will?
It does not trump the will. The problem is that they can put in the will that their 50% interest in the property goes to their children. They can do that, but it also they have to still go through into the estate. By putting it in your will, it doesn't automatically change the deed of record at the county. So there still would have to be a deed from the new husband and the mom's estate into the new husband and the children. So it's not an automatic transfer of ownership, but the will does, if that's how the mother wants it, she can state it in the will that her children get the benefit of her ownership. It's just not automatic. It's just something that's easier to take care of up front than after the fact.
Exactly, and these are important issues to look into when estate planning as well. And we always recommend, we aren't lawyers, we aren't licensed title officers ourselves, but we do recommend to our clients to seek further advice and legal counsel to make sure their situation is covered the way they need it to be.
Yeah, and again, do it before settlement, long before settlement, get all this stuff ironed out. Like the smoke detector,
so many of these things, we don't think about until we need them. Smoke detectors, insurance, all of it.
Yeah, well, Lori, thank you very much. There was some great information there. Look, guys, we know you have a lot of places to spend your time on the web. We appreciate you spending some of it with us.
And if you like what you heard and saw today, please remember to comment, like, and share. It's our oxygen, our lifeblood, keeps us going.
Follow us on all the social sites, Facebook, Insta, Snapchat. Look, if you were following us on Snapchat today, you would have seen the lower half of this outfit, which is as dialed as the top
half. It's a treat. It definitely is.
Well, and why is that, Jill?
Because real estate is about much more than homes, buildings, and land.
It's about the people in the communities where they live, work, and play. So that's it. Until next time, I'm Doug.
I'm Jill.
And I'm Lori.
Thanks for watching.